The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above me, casting a sterile glow over my desk cluttered with papers and half-empty coffee cups. I had spent the last few weeks pouring my heart into a project proposal that I hoped would finally earn me some recognition at work. My name often felt like an afterthought in meetings, overshadowed by the louder voices of my colleagues. But this time, I was determined to impress my boss, Mark. He had a reputation for being tough but fair, and the thought of presenting my ideas to him sent a flutter of nerves through me. As I polished the final details of my presentation, the clock ticked ominously toward our scheduled meeting. I glanced around the office, taking in the familiar surroundings, the framed photos of past team events on the walls and the vibrant Omaha skyline visible through the windows. The city was alive with culture. Just last weekend, I had taken a stroll through the Henry Dorley Zoo with my husband, marveling at the exotic animals and lush landscapes. It felt like another life altogether. "Hey, Amanda," Mark's voice broke through my thoughts as he entered the room, his presence commanding attention. "I'm looking forward to seeing what you've come up with." His compliment caught me off guard and sent warmth flooding through me. It was rare for him to acknowledge my efforts directly. "Thank you. I think this project could really make an impact," I replied, striving to sound confident despite the fluttering in my stomach. As we settled into our meeting, I laid out my proposal with meticulous care. Mark listened intently, nodding occasionally as I spoke about our goals and strategies. There was something about his gaze that made it hard to focus entirely on the task at hand. It felt as if he could see right through me. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and offered feedback that was both constructive and encouraging. "You've put a lot of thought into this," he said thoughtfully. "I'd like you to be my direct collaborator on this project." The words hung in the air like a weighty promise. My heart raced at that moment. Collaborating closely with Mark was both exhilarating and terrifying. The prospect of spending more time with him sent shivers down my spine, an intoxicating mix of ambition and something deeper that I couldn't quite name yet. As we wrapped up our meeting, he smiled at me in a way that felt different from our usual interactions. "Let's meet again tomorrow evening to discuss next steps." Just like that, we were locked into a rhythm of late nights together at work. After he left, I sat back in my chair, staring blankly at my notes while trying to process everything that had just happened. My mind wandered back to home. My husband Jim would be waiting for dinner when I got back from work tonight. He always appreciated a warm meal after his long days at the office too. But now there was this new dynamic swirling around me, a sense of excitement mixed with uncertainty about how it would all unfold. Days turned into weeks as we worked closely together on the project during late-night sessions filled with brainstorming and laughter over takeout from our favorite local restaurant. Each shared moment deepened an unspoken connection between us that neither of us acknowledged outright but both felt undeniably growing stronger. One evening after an especially productive session where we bounced ideas off each other until late into the night, Mark looked at me thoughtfully across his desk cluttered with papers and empty coffee cups. "You know," he began slowly, "I appreciate your dedication more than you realize." The sincerity in his tone made something inside me stir, a flicker of hope mingled with confusion about where these feelings were leading us. "Thank you," I replied softly, feeling vulnerable under his gaze yet strangely empowered by it too. As we wrapped up for the night and prepared to leave together, there was an undeniable tension hanging between us, a silent acknowledgement of what lay just beneath the surface of our professional relationship. But as much as those moments thrilled me, they also filled me with guilt when I thought about Jim waiting for me at home after long workdays filled with mundane responsibilities. His love unwavering despite any distance growing between us lately caused by work commitments or personal struggles unspoken aloud. Yet every time Mark smiled or complimented my contributions during meetings or late-night sessions together made it harder not to feel drawn toward him. the excitement blending seamlessly into something much more complicated than mere admiration for a boss who recognized talent hidden beneath layers of self-doubt accumulated over years spent feeling overlooked within corporate walls surrounding us both daily. And then came that fateful evening when everything shifted dramatically once again. The moment when Jim discovered messages exchanged between Mark and myself via synced devices left unattended one too many times while working late nights together without thinking twice about potential repercussions lurking just out of sight in shadows cast by bright office lights illuminating paths ahead filled only partially known until now. Suddenly thrust into chaos where secrets unravel before their time while emotions clash against reason like waves crashing against rocks lining shores once peaceful now turbulent. An unexpected storm brewing on horizons where clarity once reigned supreme now obscured by uncertainty looming large overhead casting shadows across choices made without fully considering consequences lurking behind every decision taken during moments spent chasing dreams alongside someone who challenged perceptions. Held tightly within hearts yearning for validation yet fearful of straying too far from familiar shores anchored firmly elsewhere. The realization hit hard. Navigating these waters would demand courage beyond anything previously imagined. Each step forward fraught with peril yet impossible not to take given how deeply entangled lives had become intertwined amidst ambitions soaring high above clouds drifting slowly overhead. The late nights at the office became a routine. A delicate dance of productivity and unspoken tension. Each time I entered the conference room, I could sense the atmosphere shift, charged with an energy that felt both thrilling and dangerous. My boss's David was not just a figure of authority, he had become a confidant in ways I hadn't anticipated. The project we were working on seemed to pull us closer together, fostering an unexpected camaraderie. As we pored over designs and budgets, I found myself laughing more often than not. The sound of his laughter was contagious, a warm balm against the solitude I sometimes felt at home. Those moments shared over spreadsheets and coffee cups were intoxicating. Yet, with each passing day, I battled an internal conflict that grew heavier on my heart. My loyalty to my husband clashed violently with the undeniable attraction blossoming between David and me. "Do you think we're actually going to pull this off?" David asked one evening as we sat across from each other in the dim light of the office. His brow furrowed slightly, but his eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Of course," I replied, trying to match his optimism. "We've put so much work into this, it has to succeed." He smiled then, a genuine smile that lit up his face and sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "I appreciate your confidence in me." The compliment lingered in the air like an uninvited guest, making it harder to focus on anything else. It was during those late-night sessions that our conversations drifted from work to more personal topics, our families, our dreams, and somehow crossed into territory that felt too intimate for mere colleagues. One night after hours of brainstorming over pizza and soda, our discussion turned toward our childhoods. "What did you want to be when you grew up?" he asked, leaning back in his chair with an inquisitive look. "I wanted to be an actress," I admitted with a chuckle that masked the seriousness beneath my words. "I loved being on stage." "Really? That's fascinating. You'd have been great at it." He leaned forward slightly as if drawing closer to me physically would somehow bridge the emotional gap between us. "Thanks," I said softly, feeling heat rise in my cheeks under his gaze. But life took me down a different path. "What about you? Did you always want to be in management?" His question opened up a window into his ambitions, his drive for success, and suddenly it felt like we were sharing secrets meant only for trusted friends. We exchanged stories late into the night until exhaustion pulled at our eyelids like heavy curtains. Then came that moment, the one where laughter faded into silence as we locked eyes across the table littered with papers and empty soda cans. There was something electric about it, an understanding passed between us without words spoken aloud. And before I could convince myself otherwise, we kissed. The world outside faded away as everything else fell silent in those fleeting seconds. My responsibilities as a wife, my sense of right and wrong, everything blurred into insignificance compared to what had just transpired between us. Panic surged through me afterward like icy water pouring down my spine as reality crashed back in around us. What had we done? The weight of guilt settled heavily upon my shoulders as I stood there frozen by confusion and fear. I shouldn't have, my voice trailed off as shame washed over me like a cold wave crashing against rocks. David looked equally stunned but also contemplative. Maybe it was just one moment? The uncertainty hung thickly between us like fog rolling through Omaha's streets early in the morning, obscuring everything familiar while revealing nothing but potential chaos ahead. We resumed working together after that night but avoided discussing what had happened, instead opting for business-like exchanges punctuated by awkward silences whenever our eyes met across conference tables or shared spaces within the office walls. Days turned into weeks filled with tense collaboration amidst shared glances that ignited sparks too powerful to ignore yet too dangerous to embrace fully without risking everything already established outside this newfound connection. Each late-night session became tinged with unspoken tension, a constant reminder of boundaries crossed yet unacknowledged. A dance where every step forward felt fraught with peril yet impossible not to take given how intertwined our lives had become amidst ambitions soaring high above clouds drifting slowly overhead. Meanwhile at home life continued its routine rhythm while beneath its surface lay currents swirling darkly. A growing discontent gnawed at me during quiet moments spent alone reflecting upon choices made during stolen hours spent chasing dreams alongside someone who challenged perceptions held tightly within hearts yearning for validation yet fearful straying too far from familiar shores anchored firmly elsewhere. My husband began noticing shifts within me, the distant looks lost in thought when he would ask about my day or subtle changes in tone when speaking about work-related matters. It wasn't long before he confronted me directly one evening after dinner while clearing plates from the table. "Amanda," he began cautiously as he placed down silverware beside half-finished dishes cluttering the surface before us. A familiar scene now tinged with tension hanging palpably around us like heavy curtains drawn tight against light filtering through windows beckoning warmth outside despite chill lingering beyond glass panes framing lives lived quietly apart despite sharing space together. Under one roof still intact though fraying edges threatened unraveling threads binding us close. "What's going on? You seem different lately." His words struck hard against my chest, an arrow piercing through layers built up around emotions swirling within kept hidden far beneath surfaces polished smooth over years spent navigating life together without questioning deeper currents flowing quietly just below visible layers obscuring truths lying dormant waiting patiently until stirred awake once again. "I'm fine," came out too quickly, a reflex response meant only for self-preservation rather than honesty needed now more than ever before. Yet even as they left my lips doubt lingered behind them like shadows cast by flickering lights illuminating dark corners hiding secrets longing escape. But how could I explain? How could I tell him about David without shattering everything built upon years spent nurturing love forged through trials weathered together? Instead silence fell heavily around us until finally breaking free from its grasp offered little comfort, only lingering unease settling deep within hearts once comfortable now shifting uncertainly against tides rising higher threatening engulfment entirely if not addressed soon enough before reaching point irreparable change. That night sleep eluded me. I tossed restlessly beneath sheets tangled tightly around limbs while visions danced before closed eyelids conjuring images filled both beauty and dread intertwined leaving little room clarity amidst confusion swirling endlessly around choices made leading down paths unforeseen where consequences loomed large overhead casting shadows across futures once bright now clouded by uncertainty threatening engulfment entirely if not addressed soon enough before reaching point irreparable change. The next morning, I woke up to a sense of dread settling in my stomach. The sun poured through the curtains, illuminating the room in a warm glow that felt utterly at odds with the turmoil swirling within me. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together my thoughts. The kiss we shared last night lingered on my lips like an uninvited guest, refusing to leave. I got out of bed and prepared for work, each movement mechanical as I went through the motions. My husband was already in the kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. He glanced up as I entered, offering a smile that felt both comforting and suffocating. "Morning, Amanda. You look tired," he said, concern etched across his face. "Just didn't sleep well," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. As I gathered my things for work, my mind raced with thoughts of Mark, my boss and the man who had awakened something within me that I thought long buried. The project we were working on consumed my every thought. It was both exhilarating and terrifying to be so close to him. Yet beneath that excitement lay a heavy weight of guilt anchored deep within me. Arriving at the office felt surreal. The usual buzz of activity seemed muted as I made my way to my desk. My colleagues greeted me with their usual pleasantries, but their voices faded into background noise as I focused on what lay ahead, my meeting with Mark. Our project had hit a snag, and we needed to brainstorm solutions quickly. As I entered his office, I found him hunched over his desk, reviewing documents with furrowed brows. He looked up when I knocked lightly on the door. "Hey, Amanda," he said with an inviting smile that sent a flutter through me. "Thanks for coming in." I took a seat across from him, our knees almost touching under the table, a detail that sent an electric jolt through me. We dove into discussions about our project's challenges. Ideas flowed freely between us like an unspoken current drawing us closer together. "Maybe we can approach it from a different angle," Mark suggested after listening to my proposal. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he leaned forward slightly, completely engaged in our conversation. For those moments, it felt as though nothing else mattered. The world outside faded away until only we remained. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. Laughter punctuated our brainstorming session as we bounced ideas off one another. It was during one particularly light-hearted exchange when our lips met, a fleeting moment filled with uncertainty but charged with undeniable chemistry. Time seemed to freeze around us before reality crashed back in like a tidal wave. My heart raced as panic surged through me. What had just happened? We pulled apart quickly, both of us startled by the sudden shift in our dynamic. Mark started but faltered as he searched for words that wouldn't come easily now. "I'm sorry," I blurted out before he could finish his thought. "That shouldn't have happened." He nodded slowly but didn't look away from me. Instead, there was an intensity in his gaze that made it hard to breathe. "It's okay, it's just, this is complicated." Complicated was an understatement. Every fiber of my being knew this could lead to something dangerous if left unchecked. But there was also something thrilling about this connection, something that made me feel alive after years of feeling invisible both at work and home. We spent the rest of the afternoon trying to regain our focus on work while stealing glances at each other when we thought the other wasn't looking. Each shared smile ignited embers of desire within me while simultaneously fueling guilt over what transpired between us. By evening's end, exhaustion weighed heavily on me, not just from work but from wrestling with emotions too raw to comprehend fully yet too powerful to ignore entirely. As I drove home through Omaha's bustling streets illuminated by streetlights casting warm glows against cold asphalt roads leading toward familiarity tinged now with uncertainty, I couldn't shake off how different everything felt since this morning began anew under bright sunshine only now cloaked by shadows creeping into corners once safe. Dinner was uneventful. Conversation flowed easily enough between us but lacked depth or connection beyond surface-level exchanges about mundane topics. Work deadlines and weekend plans devoid of excitement or passion lingering unaddressed beneath layers built carefully over years spent together navigating life's routine paths without deviation until now. After clearing dishes and washing up while he settled down with another round of news reports on TV, I retreated into our bedroom feeling weary yet restless. A contradiction mirrored within myself, unable yet unwilling to confront directly what had taken root inside since those fleeting moments shared earlier today. The night stretched long ahead, filled not only with silence but also echoes reverberating against walls once solidly constructed around commitments made long ago, binding two lives together, now fraying at edges where secrets began seeping through cracks left unattended. Too long. Sleep eluded again. Thoughts spiraled endlessly around choices made, leading down paths unforeseen where consequences loomed large overhead, casting shadows across futures once bright, now clouded by uncertainty, threatening engulfment entirely if not addressed soon enough before reaching point. Irreparable change. The next few days blurred together. A haze colored by late nights spent working alongside Mark, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline while navigating uncharted waters fraught with temptation lurking just beneath professional facades maintained carefully throughout, meetings filled, laughter punctuated by nervous glances exchanged across conference tables, echoing feelings neither dared name aloud yet could not escape entirely either. But then came Monday morning. A sudden crisis erupted unexpectedly, throwing everyone into chaos, demanding immediate attention, diverting focus away from personal entanglements, momentarily allowing space for clarity amidst turmoil swirling around professional obligations, overshadowing personal lives lived quietly behind closed doors, untouched until now. As phone calls rang incessantly throughout office corridors, buzzing with urgency demanding quick resolutions, I found myself back in Mark's office once more, strategizing solutions amidst mounting pressure building steadily outside, world beyond glass walls surrounding us, creating urgency palpable, thickening air charged electric, drawing closer still toward one another, drawn magnetically, unable resist gravity, pulling relentlessly onward despite consequences looming large overhead, threatening engulfment entirely if not addressed soon enough before reaching point. Irreparable change. The days following our unexpected night together blurred into a haze of excitement and guilt. Each morning, as the sun cast its golden light over Omaha, I found myself wrestling with the implications of our actions. The thrill of being so close to Mark was intoxicating, yet the weight of my marriage loomed heavily in the background, a constant reminder of my commitments. As we dove deeper into the project that had brought us together, our late nights in the office became more frequent. The atmosphere was charged with an unspoken understanding. Every glance lingered a moment too long, every brush of shoulders sent ripples through my thoughts. I could see it in Mark's eyes, a mix of admiration and something more profound that made my heart race. But with each passing day, the reality of my situation gnawed at me. One evening, after a particularly grueling work session filled with brainstorming and laughter, Mark suggested we take a break outside for some fresh air. The Omaha Community Playhouse was just a few blocks away, its vibrant facade illuminated against the dusky sky. As we walked side by side, I felt an electric charge between us that was impossible to ignore. "Do you ever think about how easy it is to lose track of what matters?" he asked, glancing sideways at me. His question struck a chord deep within me. I nodded slowly, contemplating my own life choices, the path I had taken that led me here, standing beside him under the fading light. "I sometimes wonder if we get so caught up in our responsibilities that we forget to live," I replied quietly. Mark stopped walking and turned to face me fully. "You have to make time for what makes you happy," he said earnestly, his voice low and sincere. In that moment, it felt as if he was reaching out not just for my agreement but for something deeper, a connection that transcended our roles at work. My heart raced as I met his gaze. There was no denying the chemistry that crackled between us. We returned to the office with renewed energy but also an undercurrent of tension that neither of us dared to address directly. As deadlines loomed closer and pressure mounted from upper management, our interactions became increasingly charged with unspoken feelings. One night after another exhausting day at work, Mark suggested we continue discussing ideas over dinner at a nearby restaurant rather than going home separately. The thought thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. Despite my internal protests about loyalty and commitment, I found myself agreeing. Over dinner, laughter flowed easily between us as we shared stories about our lives outside work, his passion for hiking and my love for visiting local art exhibits. With each passing moment, It became harder to remember why this felt wrong when everything about being with him felt so right. As we finished dessert, an indulgent chocolate mousse, I looked into his eyes and saw a flicker of desire mirrored back at me. It was then that I knew we were crossing an invisible line that would change everything. "Would you like to come back to my place?" he asked suddenly, his voice steady but laced with anticipation. I hesitated only briefly before nodding in agreement. The thrill coursing through me drowned out any lingering doubts. We spent the night together, lost in conversation and laughter until exhaustion finally claimed us both. When morning light crept through the curtains of Mark's apartment, reality hit hard as I lay beside him. The warmth of his body next to mine felt like both a comfort and a betrayal. My phone buzzed incessantly on the bedside table, messages from home reminding me of all that awaited me outside this bubble we'd created. As I slipped out of bed carefully not to wake him, dread settled in my stomach like a lead weight. Each step toward retrieving my phone felt heavy with consequence. Every notification served as a reminder of what I'd left behind, my husband who trusted me completely while I toyed with these new emotions. I scanned through messages from Tom, questions about where I'd been late last night mixed with concern for my well-being due to late hours at work becoming increasingly frequent. Guilt washed over me as I read his words. How could I justify this growing distance between us? Suddenly feeling suffocated by conflicting emotions swirling inside me like storm clouds ready to burst open overhead, I decided it was time to leave before Mark woke up. Grabbing my things quietly while trying not to disturb him proved challenging. Each item seemed heavier than before, as if weighted down by secrets left unsaid. Once outside on the street where cool air greeted me like an old friend, I took several deep breaths, trying desperately to regain composure while fighting off panic rising within me, threatening chaos if allowed free rein too long unchecked. Returning home felt surreal. Every detail seemed sharper than usual. The smell of coffee brewing wafting through our kitchen contrasted sharply against memories still fresh from last night's escapade, replaying endlessly in my mind like an unwelcome film loop, refusing pause or rewind options. Tom greeted me cheerfully as if nothing had changed since I'd left hours earlier, but beneath his smile lay an undercurrent of concern evident only upon closer inspection, revealing cracks starting form beneath surface calmness. "Long night?" he asked casually while pouring himself another cup before turning toward me expectantly, waiting for response. I hesitated, momentarily caught off guard by sudden intensity radiating from simple question before managing nodding slightly, unable meet gaze, fully fearing what lay beneath surface honesty waiting patiently just outside, ready pounce should opportunity arise. "Yeah," I finally replied, attempting sound casual despite heart racing wildly, threatening betray truth hiding just below surface. "Just working on some last-minute details." He nodded knowingly, yet something flickered across his face, a hint, perhaps suspicion? Doubt? Or maybe even intuition. Whatever it was sent shivers down spine, reminding how fragile balance had become between two worlds colliding rapidly, threatening engulfment entirely should truth emerge unbidden. The rest of the day passed slowly, each interaction tinged with uncertainty, leaving lingering questions unanswered hanging thickly in air around us like fog obscuring vision ahead. That evening after dinner, while sitting together on couch watching television, I noticed Tom's phone buzz repeatedly, drawing attention away from show playing out before us, capturing focus entirely instead on screen, reflecting bright light, illuminating features, casting shadows, deepening furrows etched across brow, revealing tension building steadily within room. "What's up?" I asked casually, attempting feign interest despite anxiety bubbling beneath surface, threatening overflow any second should opportunity arise, allowing escape route open wide enough slip through unnoticed. "Just work stuff," he replied dismissively, waving hand dismissively signaling return focus back screen, instead addressing issue looming large overhead, unresolved lingering doubt still hanging thickly around us both. But deep down inside something shifted irrevocably. A nagging feeling began, whispering warnings, cautioning against complacency, urging vigilance lest consequences arise unexpectedly, catching unaware when least expected, struck hardest, leaving devastation behind, wreckage scattered everywhere. As night wore on, weariness settled heavily upon shoulders, dragging eyelids downward, urging sleep, beckoning sweet release from turmoil surrounding waking world outside, slipping away, gently fading into darkness, wrapping around like comforting embrace, shielding against harsh realities lurking just beyond reach, awaiting next opportunity strike unexpectedly when least expected, leaving devastation behind, once again unearthing buried truths long hidden away beneath layers, carefully constructed facades designed to keep everything intact despite cracks forming, steadily growing larger each passing moment, threatening collapse entirely should anything disrupt delicate balance held together tenuously by threads fraying, slowly unraveling one stitch time until nothing remained holding pieces place anymore. What would tomorrow bring? Would Tom suspect anything? And most importantly, what did this mean for Mark? The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the room. I stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The warmth of the sheets felt foreign against my skin, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling in my mind. How could I have let things go this far? I turned onto my side, glancing at my phone. A message from Tom lit up the screen, and my heart raced. "Where are you?" it read, followed by a series of question marks. The unease settled deeper in my stomach as I recalled our last conversation before I left for that business trip with Mark. Tom had been concerned about my late nights at work, but I brushed it off, insisting it was just part of an important project. Now, those words hung over me like a storm cloud ready to burst. I quickly typed back a response, trying to sound casual yet reassuring, just wrapping up some things at the office. Be home soon. But was that even true? As I pondered my response, memories of last night flooded back, the thrill of being close to Mark, the connection we shared during our late-night conversations. Yet beneath that exhilaration lay a heavy blanket of guilt that suffocated any joy I might have felt. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and sat up slowly. The weight of my choices pressed down on me like an anchor, pulling me into darker waters. What had started as admiration for Mark's leadership had morphed into something much more complicated, something that now threatened both my marriage and my career. The shower felt refreshing against my skin as I tried to wash away the remnants of doubt clinging to me like stubborn fog. As steam filled the bathroom, thoughts raced through my mind. What if Tom found out? How would he react? Would he confront me directly or bury his feelings beneath layers of anger and disappointment? After dressing in something professional yet comfortable, a navy blazer paired with tailored slacks, I took one last look in the mirror before heading out. My reflection showed a woman torn between two worlds, one filled with responsibility and loyalty, the other with excitement and risk. The drive to work felt longer than usual as I replayed every moment spent with Mark in my head, his laughter echoing in conference rooms, his thoughtful insights during meetings. But now there was an added layer. Our night together lingered like an uninvited guest in every thought. Upon arriving at the office, I was met with a flurry of activity. Colleagues rushed past me, engaged in discussions about upcoming deadlines and project updates. I forced myself to smile and nod as they greeted me but felt detached from it all. "Hey Amanda." Sarah called from her desk across the room. "You okay? You seem a bit off today." "Just tired," I replied quickly, not wanting to delve into anything deeper. As I settled into my workspace, Mark appeared at my doorframe, his presence instantly commanding attention despite the chaos around us. "Morning," he said softly, his voice low enough for only me to hear. "Morning," I managed to respond while avoiding his gaze. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, a gesture that sent shivers down my spine as memories flooded back uninvited once more. "I wanted to talk about last night," he began cautiously. A knot formed in my stomach at his words, regret shone clearly in his eyes as he continued speaking. "I don't want this to complicate things between us." His honesty struck me hard, it was refreshing yet terrifying all at once. "Mark, we can't ignore what happened," I said quietly. I know, he replied slowly, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that revealed how troubled he was by our situation. Before we could go further down that road fraught with uncertainty, Sarah knocked on the door before entering without waiting for an invitation. Sorry for interrupting. Amanda, we need your input on this presentation. I shot Mark an apologetic look as we shifted back into professional mode almost instantly, the weight of our previous conversation hanging heavily between us like an invisible barrier. Of course. Let's get started, I said brightly while forcing myself to focus on work instead of what lay beyond these walls, beyond this office where lines blurred between right and wrong. As hours passed filled with meetings and emails demanding attention from every direction possible, thoughts about Tom crept back into focus again like persistent shadows refusing to fade away completely. By noon, unease gnawed at me relentlessly until finally succumbing when lunch rolled around, and Tom's message flashed once more across my screen, "Can we talk tonight?" Panic settled deep within. What could he possibly want? Did he sense something was amiss? My heart raced as dread washed over every inch of me while contemplating whether or not it would be wise even attempting honesty after everything that had transpired recently. After lunch concluded filled with forced laughter among colleagues pretending nothing was wrong, it became increasingly clear how fragile this balance truly was. Each moment spent avoiding reality only heightened anxiety surrounding impending confrontation looming ahead, just waiting patiently outside those office doors where truth awaited reckoning. The afternoon dragged on painfully slow while anticipation built inside, pressing against walls closing tighter around me until finally escaping became impossible without consequences lurking nearby ready pounce should any slip occur, revealing hidden truths buried deep within shadows cast long ago before everything changed forevermore. When work finally ended for day, a sense relief washed over only briefly before facing inevitable confrontation awaiting later tonight when returning home meant stepping back into life once shared together alongside husband who deserved better than secrets hidden beneath layers carefully constructed facades designed to keep everything intact despite cracks forming steadily growing larger each passing moment, threatening collapse entirely should anything disrupt delicate balance held together tenuously by threads fraying, slowly unraveling one stitch time until nothing remained holding pieces place anymore. As evening approached, I found myself standing outside our house staring blankly ahead while recalling moments shared within those walls, filled laughter, love, warmth, familiarity. But now they seemed tainted, somehow shadowed by choices made recently, weighing heavily upon chest, constricting breath, making movement difficult. Even simple act walking forward seemed monumental task requiring courage long since lost somewhere along journey taken toward unknown destination, fraught dangers lurking just beyond reach, waiting strike unexpectedly when least expected, leaving devastation behind, once again unearthing buried truths long hidden away beneath layers, carefully constructed facades designed to keep everything intact despite cracks forming, steadily growing larger each passing moment, threatening collapse entirely should anything disrupt delicate balance held together tenuously by threads fraying, slowly unraveling one stitch time until nothing remained holding pieces place anymore. What awaited inside? Would Tom confront me directly, or would silence reign supreme, leaving questions unanswered lingering indefinitely like ghosts haunting corners, darkened rooms where light failed penetrate, illuminating truths hidden beneath surface, obscured reality masking essence pure. Love once shared freely without hesitation, now overshadowed by uncertainty, fear, betrayal looming large overhead, casting shadows stretching far beyond confines, mere four walls surrounding home built together, brick foundation laid strong yet crumbling under weight, burdens carried silently forward throughout years gone by. The following days dragged on, each moment stretching into eternity as I navigated the treacherous waters of my dual existence. My husband, Tom, was increasingly suspicious, his questions growing sharper with every late night spent at the office. I could see it in his eyes, the way he studied me, searching for truths hidden behind my practiced smiles and casual reassurances. "Amanda," he said one evening, his voice steady yet tinged with concern. "You've been working late a lot lately. Is everything okay at the office?" I forced a laugh, hoping to deflect his worries. Just busy with the new project. You know how it is. But he wasn't convinced. His brow furrowed deeper, and I felt the weight of his gaze like a spotlight on my fragile facade. Each inquiry chipped away at my confidence, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. At work, praise for my contributions flowed in from all directions. My boss commended my insights during meetings. My colleagues recognized my efforts in ways they hadn't before. Yet each compliment felt like a double-edged sword, cutting deeper into the already fraying edges of my loyalty to Tom. I wanted to bask in the recognition but couldn't shake the guilt that accompanied it. One afternoon, as I sat in the break room sipping coffee alone, I overheard a conversation between two coworkers discussing their weekend plans at the Henry Dorley Zoo. The mention of such a vibrant place stirred something within me, a longing for simplicity and connection that had been overshadowed by recent events. "Are you going to take your kids?" one asked. "Of course. They love it there," her friend replied, enthusiasm radiating from her words. I remembered taking our children there years ago when they were still young enough to marvel at every animal and exhibit. Those moments felt like distant memories now, replaced by late-night meetings and secret glances exchanged with my boss. As I returned to my desk, I glanced at my phone and noticed several missed messages from Tom. Each ding echoed in my mind like an alarm bell ringing louder than before. The last message read, "Can we talk tonight? Something's bothering me." The urgency of his words sent a chill down my spine. That evening, as we sat across from each other at dinner, silence hung heavily between us like an unspoken accusation. Tom pushed food around his plate while I struggled to maintain eye contact, fearing what might spill out if we spoke too freely. "Are you seeing someone else?" he finally asked, breaking the tension with a question that struck harder than any blow could have. "What? No. Of course not." My voice came out sharper than intended. Panic surged through me as I realized how close we were to unraveling everything. His expression softened slightly but remained serious. "Then why do you seem so distant? You're not yourself lately." I opened my mouth to respond but found no words that would convey the complexity of what was happening inside me, the whirlwind of emotions battling for dominance over reason and responsibility. "I'm just stressed about work," I managed to say finally, hoping it would suffice. Tom nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced. "You can talk to me about anything." The sincerity in his voice tugged at something deep within me, a reminder of our shared history and commitment built over years together. Yet even as those thoughts swirled in my head, another part whispered about late-night meetings with him, my boss, and how exhilarating those moments had become despite their inherent danger. After dinner, Tom suggested watching a movie together as if trying to bridge the gap that had formed between us recently. It felt comforting yet suffocating all at once. Part of me wanted this connection while another part screamed for freedom from its constraints. As we settled onto the couch under dim light flickering from the screen above us, I couldn't shake off the feeling that every laugh shared during this time only deepened our respective divides rather than closing them up again. Later that night when we turned off the lights and crawled into bed, Tom's breathing steady beside me, I lay awake staring into darkness wondering if this was all there was left for us. Empty conversations masked by routine obligations while secrets festered beneath layers of unacknowledged truths waiting patiently for their moment to surface again. The next morning came too quickly. Sunlight streamed through our bedroom window illuminating shadows cast by doubt lingering heavily around us, both like ghosts refusing release from their bindings long after life had moved on elsewhere outside these walls where love once flourished freely without restraints now, replaced by careful avoidance masking deeper issues lying dormant beneath surface appearances held together tightly just enough to keep everything intact until when I arrived at work later that day feeling more frazzled than ever before amidst mounting pressures weighing heavily upon shoulders already burdened far beyond capacity limits set long ago, it became clear. Balancing loyalty towards Tom alongside growing attraction towards him was becoming increasingly impossible without consequences looming large ahead, threatening collapse entirely should anything disrupt delicate balance maintained precariously thus far. My boss greeted me warmly upon entering his office, however today felt different somehow. An undercurrent pulsing beneath surface interactions hinting towards something unsaid lurking just out of reach, waiting patiently observe outcomes unfold before revealing itself fully when least expected. "Great job on that presentation yesterday," he said, genuinely pleased while reviewing notes scattered across desk cluttered with papers outlining next phases, project timelines ahead requiring immediate attention, focus shifting back towards work instead, diverting thoughts elsewhere where they didn't belong anymore. "Thank you," came out quietly, barely above whisper, escaping lips trembling slightly, betraying inner turmoil brewing beneath surface calmness, attempting maintain outward appearances intact despite everything crumbling inside, threatening spillover uncontrollably unless addressed soon. Yet even amidst chaos swirling around us both like storm clouds gathering ominously overhead, blocking sunlight, illuminating paths forward clearly, it seemed impossible ignore undeniable chemistry still simmering quietly beneath layers, professionalism demanding acknowledgement sooner rather than later before reaching boiling point, irrevocably altering dynamics forevermore, leaving nothing untouched. Aftermath, inevitable fallout destined follow suit thereafter. As day progressed, unease grew steadily stronger, filling air, thick tension palpable each time crossed paths throughout office space, filled laughter, conversations echoing reminders, past intimacy shared previously now tainted, shadows creeping ever closer, threatening engulf entire landscape, once familiar territory transformed into battleground, fought fiercely against competing desires, clashing relentlessly, spiraling further away, control lost sight, clarity needed, desperately navigate uncertain waters ahead. The air in the office felt heavy, charged with unspoken words and unresolved tension. I moved through the day like a ghost, my mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The chance encounter with my old friend earlier had stirred something deep within me, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Her words echoed in my mind, "You deserve to be happy, Amanda. Don't let fear dictate your choices." But how could I reconcile that with the reality of my life? As I sat at my desk, the glow from my computer screen illuminated a hidden message that had slipped through the cracks of my focus. It was an email from my husband, sent late last night after I had returned home from another late meeting with my boss. "I'm worried about you," it read. "You've been distant lately. Let's talk tonight." My heart sank as I read those words, each one a reminder of the growing chasm between us. I glanced around the office, spotting my boss across the room, deep in conversation with another colleague. His laughter rang out like a siren's call, drawing me in despite the turmoil churning inside me. How had we gotten here? Our connection had once felt exhilarating, now it seemed like an anchor dragging me down into depths I wasn't sure I could navigate. The clock ticked steadily toward 5 o'clock, and I knew our usual end-of-day check-in would soon occur. My stomach twisted at the thought of facing him again, knowing that each interaction only deepened my internal conflict. As colleagues filtered out of the office for the day, I remained seated, hoping to gather my thoughts before our inevitable conversation. When he finally approached me, his expression was warm yet guarded. "Hey, Amanda," he said softly. "Can we talk for a minute?" The weight of those words hung heavily between us as he gestured toward his office. I followed him inside and closed the door behind me, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread swirling within me. "I wanted to check in on how you're feeling about everything," he began, his voice steady but laced with concern. "I'm managing," I replied cautiously, avoiding his gaze as memories flooded back, the warmth of his touch during our late-night work sessions and the thrill that came with being near him. He leaned against his desk, studying me intently. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" His eyes were sincere but held an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "I appreciate that," I managed to say while fighting back emotions threatening to spill over. But there's so much going on right now, at home. He nodded slowly as if understanding more than I was willing to admit. Family can be challenging, he said quietly before shifting topics slightly. Your contributions on this project have been invaluable. His praise should have made me feel proud. Instead, it felt like another layer of pressure added to an already heavy burden. Thank you, I murmured, feeling both validated and trapped by expectations, both professional and personal. As we spoke about work details and deadlines looming ahead, I couldn't shake off the nagging sense that something was shifting beneath our feet, a tectonic shift threatening everything we'd built together in this precarious balance between professional respect and personal attraction. After our meeting concluded without further incident or acknowledgement of what lay beneath our surface interactions, I returned to my desk feeling more conflicted than ever before. The clock ticked down toward closing time. Every second felt like an eternity as anxiety clawed at my insides. My phone buzzed suddenly, a text from my husband, "Please don't avoid this conversation tonight." My heart raced as panic set in. He deserved honesty, but how could I open that door when so much remained unsaid? Just then, a knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. It was him again. He stood there hesitantly before stepping inside without waiting for permission this time, a bold move that sent shivers down my spine. Amanda, he began carefully while closing the door behind him once more, sealing us off from prying eyes outside. I've been thinking about us. The world outside faded away as those three words hung heavily between us like an electric charge waiting to ignite something long buried beneath layers of professionalism and restraint. What do you mean? The question slipped out before I could stop myself, my voice barely above a whisper yet filled with urgency. I think we need to address what's been happening between us, he said firmly but gently enough not to frighten me away completely. My heart raced at his admission. Part of me longed for this moment while another part screamed for caution, to pull back from this precipice before plunging into unknown depths below where consequences awaited eagerly like predators lurking just out of sight ready pounce upon any misstep taken carelessly during this dance we'd engaged in far too long already. Before I could formulate a response or even consider what might follow next, a loud crash echoed through the office building, startling both of us into silence momentarily frozen by sudden chaos erupting unexpectedly beyond our bubble created within these four walls around us. What was that? My voice quivered slightly as adrenaline surged through veins pumping wildly, now fueled by uncertainty looming larger than ever before, casting shadows over decisions needing made urgently yet fraught with danger lurking just beyond reach. I don't know, he replied sharply, glancing toward where noise originated from outside, his expression shifting into one filled with concern tinged by something darker lurking beneath surface tension held tightly together until now, fraying edges threatening unravel completely if not handled carefully henceforth. In that instant, a realization washed over me like cold water splashed across face, waking up senses dulled by complacency. There was no escaping reality anymore. Choices loomed ahead, demanding reckoning long overdue. Whether ready or not, consequences awaited inevitably just around corner, beckoning forth reckoning upon arrival, inevitably following suit thereafter. The tension in the room was palpable, a thick fog of unspoken words hanging between us. I could see the worry etched on my husband's face, the lines deepening as he searched for answers. My heart raced, not just from fear of what I had done but from the weight of the truth I was about to unveil. "Why have you been acting so distant?" he asked, his voice low and strained. "You're not the same person anymore." I took a breath, feeling the air catch in my throat. The late nights at work, the unexplained absences, he deserved an explanation. But how could I explain my feelings for my boss without shattering everything? "I've been busy with projects," I started, but the words felt hollow even to me. Busy? Or avoiding me? His gaze pierced through me, demanding honesty. "A little bit of both," I admitted finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's someone at work." His expression shifted from confusion to realization. "Someone? You mean your boss?" The accusation hung in the air like a thundercloud ready to unleash its storm. Yes, I confessed, feeling a surge of adrenaline as I spoke those words aloud. We've grown close while working together. He looked away, processing my admission with a mixture of hurt and anger. Close how? What does that even mean? It means I'm confused about my feelings, I replied, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I don't know what this is or where it's going. As if summoned by our conversation's intensity, my phone buzzed on the table, a message from him. My stomach dropped as I glanced at it. *, can we meet? We need to talk. *. I quickly silenced it, knowing full well that whatever he wanted to discuss would only complicate matters further. Is there more? My husband's voice broke through my thoughts. I need to meet him, I said impulsively, realizing how reckless that sounded even as it left my lips. Meet him? For what? He demanded incredulously. To figure things out. To understand what this really is. The urgency in my voice startled me. It felt like a plea for clarity amidst chaos. He shook his head slowly, disappointment flooding his features. And what about us? What do you think this will do to our marriage? I don't know. The frustration bubbled over as tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. But I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. A heavy silence enveloped us again as reality sunk in deeper than before. The weight of our shared history pressed down on me like an anchor pulling me underwater. Each memory felt like a reminder of what was at stake, years built on love and trust now teetering on the brink of collapse. My phone buzzed again, this time with an incoming call from him. My pulse quickened as uncertainty gripped me tight. Should I answer? Would it lead to more complications, or perhaps clarity? My husband noticed and shot me a wary look. You're not seriously considering this? I have to, I breathed out softly, feeling torn between two worlds that felt increasingly incompatible. As I hesitated over answering, another wave of guilt washed over me for putting him through this turmoil. His pain was evident and raw before me now. Fine, he said finally with resignation in his voice that stung deeper than any accusation could have done. If you think you need to meet him, then go. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I picked up my phone and stared at the screen as if it held all the answers we needed right now. We can talk later, he added quietly before turning away from me completely, a gesture filled with defeat rather than anger. With trembling fingers, I answered the call and heard his voice on the other end, a mix of urgency and concern lacing every word. Amanda. Are you okay? His tone sent chills down my spine. It was both comforting yet unsettling all at once. I'm fine, I replied quickly, glancing back at my husband who remained silent but attentive in his own way across from me. You don't sound fine, he pressed gently but firmly. Can we meet somewhere? We need to discuss everything. Where? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. Part of me wanted to refuse while another part craved clarity despite knowing how complicated things had already become. How about that coffee shop near your office? He suggested after a moment's pause, the familiarity of our usual meeting spot evoking memories both sweet and bitter now tangled together like threads unraveling from fabric worn thin by time itself. Okay. My heart raced again. Not just from anticipation but also fear about what would happen next once we faced each other again outside these walls where secrets had thrived too long unchecked. After hanging up, dread settled heavily over me like mist hanging low across Omaha's skyline during early morning hours. Uncertainty loomed large ahead, waiting patiently just beyond reach until decisions made would inevitably determine paths taken henceforth, leading either toward resolution or further disarray, spiraling out control altogether. What are you thinking? My husband's voice broke into my thoughts again, his gaze searching mine for answers, perhaps even hoping against hope somehow there might still be chance salvage something worthwhile left amid wreckage scattered around us now threatening consume everything if not addressed soon enough. I'm going to meet him. The words tasted bitter coming out but felt necessary nonetheless despite knowing they would only deepen existing wounds already raw between us both laid bare without pretense anymore. He nodded slowly, accepting yet resigned, and turned away completely leaving behind silence heavy enough echo throughout room filled with memories shared previously now tainted by unspoken truths lurking just beneath surface waiting patiently until moments arrived where they could no longer remain hidden forever. As minutes passed slowly ticking away toward inevitable meeting looming ahead filled with uncertainty clouding mind-racing thoughts swirling chaotically around without reprieve seeking solace somewhere amidst turmoil brewing within heart itself desperate grasp hold on to something solid amidst chaos threatening engulf completely without warning. I stood there paralyzed momentarily caught between two worlds. One rooted firmly in past while other beckoned forth promise future unknown yet tantalizingly close enough reach grasp tightly hold on to whatever semblance hope remained alive within weary spirit yearning find peace amidst storm raging outside beyond walls enclosing us both here now tethered together still despite distance growing wider every second ticking past reminding constantly choices made inevitably led toward consequences unforeseen awaiting arrival soon enough.